Ayato was an ugly, pathetic loner who everyone avoided like the pandemic until he suddenly became the strongest in an academy full of overpowered girls and claps his way to the top. Upon arriving at the academy, Ayato noticed the handkerchief casually floating down from a window in a tall building. So he considered being a nice guy and returned it to its owner. With ridiculous speed, he leaped high into the air, and without any invitation or forethought, the disgusting idiot barged into the room through the window. There he found a girl named Ulyss, who was unclad down to her plot armor. In a panic, he frantically tried to apologize for being an insensitive moron, but Ulyss snatched the handkerchief from him and snapped, saying she valued the handkerchief more than his pathetic existence. After delivering those brutal words, she blasted Ayato out of the room for being a disgusting creep. Luckily, Ayato survived the attack from the crazy chick. Seeing that Ayato somehow survived, Ulyss, still ticked off, challenged him to a duel for invading the girl's dorm and spying on her while she was changing. Ayato, trying to explain himself, said he had just transferred and was a clueless newbie, but Ulyss wasn't having it and told him that, as a new student, he shouldn't be wandering around like a brain-dead moron, still trying to dodge a duel with the psychotic bitch. Ayato said he didn't even have a metal sword for the fight. Just then, a random idiot from the crowd that had gathered tossed him one. With no more excuses left, the duel began, and they both activated their metal swords. The rule of the duel was simple: whoever destroyed the opponent's school badge won. From the start, Ulyss showed off some flashy moves with her sword and unleashed her Lawn Florum attack, sending a fire flame blade toward Ayato. He managed to block some strikes with his sword and barely dodged the others. Not giving him a break, Ulyss followed up with her boosting flaming spear attack, which Ayato parried, though the impact sent him stumbling backward. Seeing that Ayato had actually survived, Ulyss began to think he might not be a worthless, talentless weakling as she first thought, so she cranked up the intensity and unleashed her next attack, Amaryllis, hurling a giant fireball at him. Without hesitation, Ayato charged straight at the massive flaming ball. It exploded just as he reached it, and Ulyss was certain there was no way in hell the filthy, disgusting, cultured creep could have survived. But to her surprise, Ayato had summoned twin dragons that dispersed the explosion. In a blink, Ayato appeared unscathed from the blast and dove right into Ulyss, cushioning his fall with her soft body. Ulyss, seeing this creep right on top of her, was frozen with shock, but then noticed Ayato had done it to save her from a blazing arrow aimed at her. However, she also realized another thing. Ayato had taken the chance to cop a feel, squeezing her mini boobage in the process, leaving her embarrassed and furious. Just then, Claudia, the blonde student council president, appeared and called off the duel. Ulyss, annoyed that the duel was interrupted, was informed by Claudia that Ayato hadn't even completed his transfer process yet and wasn't technically a full student. Therefore, he couldn't engage in a duel. Afterward, Claudia took Ayato to her office to officially welcome him to the academy. She explained that as a student, his sole duty was to win the Battle of Supremacy, a yearly competition between students from all over the world. She also let him know that the academy hadn't won in years and asked him to win it, promising that the academy would grant him any wish he desired. Ayato, however, told her he didn't have any particular desires except he would want her to sit on his face and fix his disgusting look. Hearing this, Claudia questioned why the buffon had joined the academy. Ayato revealed that apart from fixing his haunting look, his true goal was to find his older sister, Haruka, who had once attended the school. Claudia then informed him that, according to the records, his sister had withdrawn for personal reasons and never participated in the Battle of Supremacy. It was a mystery if she even attended the academy at all. Afterwards, she handed Ayato his weapon and gave him a surprising hug, pressing her large chesticles against his back, which left Ayato shocked. Later that day, Ayato was introduced to his class, and the teacher seated him next to Ulyss, which infuriated her. Shortly after, Ayato attempted to apologize for touching her fun bags during their earlier encounter, but Ulyss stormed off, telling the moronic creep to go to hell. However, she begrudgingly admitted she owed him for saving her life. Just then, a random ugly face named Yabuki introduced himself as Ayato's roommate. A few minutes later, Ayato and Yabuki walked around the school, and Ayato asked why everyone referred to Ulyss as a princess. Yabuki explained that she was actually the crown princess of a European monarchy, which made Ayato wonder why a princess would be at the academy battling with commoners. Yabuki mentioned that it was a question on everyone's mind, and some students had even challenged her to duels to find out, but all had been humiliated by her. After this conversation, Ayato handed Yabuki the sword that had been tossed to him during his duel with Ulyss. Yabuki asked how Ayato knew it was him who threw the sword from the crowd, and Ayato responded, telling him that his face was too disgusting, and no one would have forgotten such a traumatized face. Just then, they heard voices in the distance and decided to investigate. Peering through the bushes, they saw an ugly brute named Lester challenging Ulyss to a duel. Ulyss, unimpressed, told him she'd beaten him too many times and had no interest in wasting her energy on his weak ass. But Lester, determined to fight, drew his sword and demanded a duel. Ulyss, annoyed, told him she'd rather drink urine than fight him again. When Lester grabbed her hand, forcing her to drop her handkerchief, Ulyss lost her temper and unleashed her powerful flames, stunning Ayato. In her fury, she asked Lester what he was fighting for, saying she had something to accomplish, and to do so, she was going to sweep the tournament and fulfill her wish. However, Ayato quickly interrupted the fight and Lester walked away in anger, promising not to give up. Afterward, Ayato asked Ulyss why she was fighting in the academy since she was a princess, and she replied that it was for money, shocking him. She then told him that she first need to conquer the Phoenix Festa in achieving her goal, and Ayato asked her if she had found a partner for that yet, making her speechless. Ro realized that she was a lonely idiot who had no friends since she is a Karen. She began to yap that it was not that she didn't have friends or something like that, but Ayato knew it was all a cap. A few minutes later, he asked her if she minded showing him around the academy sometime, and she agreed. The following morning, Ayato woke from a dream where he saw his sister Haruka scolding him for using his powers to fight off bullies. She reminded him that he was still young, and it wasn't time to tap into his incredible powers just yet. For now, she would be the one to protect him. Later in class, Ayato ran into an old childhood friend, Saya, and was surprised to see her at the academy. He mentioned that he thought she had gone overseas with her father. With a smirk, Ayato added that even after 6 years, Saya hadn't changed at all. She was still plotless and flat as a cutting board. Later that day, Ulyss approached Ayato to make good on her promise. Since he had saved her from the fire Euro, he had asked her to show him around the academy as repayment. Just as they were about to start their tour, Saya jumped in, insisting that she should be the one to show Ayato around. The two girls quickly started bickering and arguing over who would give Ayato the tour. In the middle of their spat, Claudia showed up, grabbed Ayato by the hand, and the dude climaxed for the 40th time in one day. She informed the girls that since they were fighting over who would be Ayato's tour guide, she'd be happy to take the job and show Ayato around herself. Annoyed, Ulyss and Saya told the thirsty bitch to back off and behave. With a grin, Claudia withdrew her offer and reminded Ayato that weapon selection was happening that day. If he wanted to use the weapon his sister once wielded at the academy, he'd have to undergo a compatibility test. A few minutes later, Ulyss and Saya, having agreed to call a truce, took Ayato on a tour of the school together. During a break, while Ayato went to grab some drinks, the girls were suddenly attacked by two masked assassins firing flaming arrows. Ulyss then launched her flame spear at the attackers, but it was deflected. Saya then transformed her weapon into a grenade launcher and blasted the assassins with a barrage of laser shots, completely obliterating them and leaving the ground scorched. The fountain was also broken, making them wet, and when Ayato returned, he was shocked to see everywhere destroyed and the girls wet. He wondered what happened since his looks was not enough to make them wet anyway, but the Ulyss became shocked when she realized that her plot armor was visible. Meanwhile, Saya wasn't even disturbed because she was built like a surfboard and had nothing to hide anyway. The next day, Ayato met with Claudia for his sister's weapon compatibility test. When they arrived at the lab where his sister's powerful weapon was stored, they ran into Lester, who was also there, hoping to claim his sister Haruka's weapon for himself. The test began soon after, and Claudia explained that the system would measure the user's compatibility with the Orgalux, the legendary weapon. If the compatibility score was above 80%, the user could wield it. Lester went first, as he grasped the Orgalux and activated the massive metal sword capable of splitting the heavens. The system gave him a score of 32%. Furious that he wasn't compatible, Lester stubbornly kept trying to force the sword to accept him. But no matter how many times he tried, the Orgalux continued rejecting his ugly mug face. After repeated attempts, the weapon started to overheat and malfunction, ultimately attacking Ayato in the process. Before the sword could impale him, Ayato caught it mid-air and smashed it into the ground, forcing the Orgalux to return to normal. The system then gave Ayato a compatibility score of 97%, confirming that he was worthy of wielding the sword. Later that night, Ayato arrived at Claudia's room after she had asked him to meet her there. When he entered, he found her wearing a sauscloth with her plots exposed that paused his brain momentarily. Shortly afterwards, Claudia led Ayato in her bedroom, revealing that she had called him there to ask for a favor. Ayato asked what she needed, and Claudia explained that students of the academy set to fight in the next Phoenix competition had been mysteriously attacked and were forced to withdraw due to injuries. Hearing this, Aya's two brain cells finally connected, and he realized that the same assassins after Ulyss might be responsible for these attacks. He then asked Claudia if there were any suspects behind the assaults on the students. She informed him that the school's disciplinary committee had strong suspicions about Lester and a random student named Randy. Claudia then revealed the favor she needed. She wanted Ayato to stay close to Ulyss for the time being, as she might not be able to handle another attack on her own. Claudia added that Ayato was the only person to break through Ulyss' emotional barriers, as she had closed herself off from others. He was the best candidate for the job. After that, Claudia requested another favor, which was far more inappropriate. She suggested that as a reward for helping her with Ulyss, Ayato would also help make her drip, so she climbed on him, pressed his hands on her bouncy pillows, and demanded he play with it. But the dude had climaxed from hand relief already, so he wasn't interested in her religion. The following morning, Ulyss took Ayato on a tour around the city. While they were having lunch, Lester showed up and demanded another duel with Ulyss on the spot. Annoyed, Ayato told Lester to stop chasing a duel and focus instead on fixing his ugly face. Infuriated by the comment, Lester grabbed Ayato by his shirt and slammed his weapon on the ground. His idiotic henchman then tried to calm him down, reminding him that they were in public and couldn't fight outside of a sanctioned match. Later, as Ayato and Ulyss walked home, they stumbled upon a group of delinquents brawling in the street. Sensing something off, Ulyss pointed out that the setup seemed like a trap to ambush them. That moment, one of the thugs then fired a blazing arrow in her direction, prompting Ulyss to charge toward the group. She made quick work of the delinquents, defeating them with ease. Grabbing a thug with a ridiculous mohawk, she demanded to know who had hired them to attack her. The thug nervously pointed to a masked figure in black and confessed that they had been paid to take her down. And Ayato and Ulyss gave chase. Deep in the woods, they were ambushed by 3 more assassins who launched blazing arrows at them. One arrow grazed Ayato, shredding his clothes and wounding him slightly. That night, Ulyss invited Ayato to her room. When he arrived, she abruptly told him to take off his shirt, leaving him stunned and hesitant, thinking she had questionable intentions. Ulyss, noticing his reaction, quickly clarified that she only wanted to sew his torn shirt from the earlier attack. Relieved, Ayato handed over his shirt. As Ulyss stitched it back together, Ayato noticed a picture of her with some children at an orphanage. Flustered, Ulyss explained that when she was younger, she used to sneak out of the palace to play. And one night, she was attacked by thugs. It was the kids at the orphanage who saved her. Ever since then, she saw them as family and often played with them. Ulyss revealed that she was attending the academy to raise money for the orphanage. Due to the kingdom's bureaucratic system, overseen by an external government, she could never get funding approval for welfare projects, so winning the competition was her only option. She also showed Ayato her cherished handkerchief, explaining that the kids at the orphanage had gifted it to her for her birthday, each one taking turns embroidering it, making it her most treasured possession. The next day in class, Ayato noticed Ulyss reading a letter. Curious, he asked what it was about, but she told him to mind his own business before leaving abruptly, mentioning that she had some unfinished business. Shortly afterward, Ayato informed Claudia that Ulyss had received a mysterious letter and left the school. Claudia, concerned, suggested that the letter might be from the assassins plotting to eliminate Ulyss. Without wasting time, Ayato bolted out of the room, telling Claudia he was going after Ulyss. In response, Claudia tossed his sister's metal sword to him as he ran off. Meanwhile, Ulyss arrived at the meeting point specified in the letter, shocked to discover that the mastermind behind the assassins was none other than Norman, a fellow academy student. Seeing his hideous face, she couldn't help but wonder why he looked so disgusting. Norman, unfazed, proposed a deal. If Ulyss withdrew from the Phoenix competition, he'd spare her life. But Ulyss had a counteroffer: to end his worthless existence and bring some joy to the world. Just then, Lester, who had been tricked by Norman into thinking Ulyss had accepted his duel, arrived on the scene. Ulyss quickly informed the clueless brood that he had been deceived. Norman was working for another academy and was responsible for the attacks on students registered for the Phoenix competition. Enraged by the betrayal, Lester vowed to send Norman straight to the afterlife. He drew his mighty Thor axe and charged at Norman, but the cloaked, faceless creep appeared and blocked Lester's attack. With a snap of Norman's fingers, 2 more faceless goons transformed into menacing automated killer robots. Outnumbered, Lester unleashed his ultimate attack, which turned out to be weak and ineffective against the robots. Norman then summoned even more of them, and soon they began to overwhelm Lester. Seeing the situation worsen, Yū unleashed her fire vortex, taking out some of the robots, but the others quickly regrouped and attacked her. Though Yū managed to impale a few, their sheer numbers were too much. They soon shot her in the thigh and pinned her against the wall. Norman sauntered over and began to torment Yū, demanding she quit the Phoenix competition. When she refused, he ordered his robots to finish her off. Just as one of the robots prepared to strike, Ayato arrived at the last second, saving Jules from certain death. Ungrateful as ever, Jules scolded Ayato, insisting she didn't need his help and that the fight had nothing to do with him. Ayato, unfazed, told her that protecting her was his life's mission. As they bickered, Norman unleashed his man-equal robots, threatening to grind them both into fish bait. The robots opened fire, but Ayato, using his incredible skill, sliced through them like butter, leaving Norman stunned. In a panic, Norman unveiled his ultimate weapon, a massive robot with glowing red eyes, and launched a barrage of missiles at Ayato, who effortlessly dodged them while carrying Yū. Ayato then went on the offensive, using his incredible speed to slice through the remaining robots like cabbage, leaving Norman utterly shocked. For his final move, Norman unveiled a towering giant robot with glowing red eyes, charging at Ayato like a deranged monkey. But Ayato, wielding his powerful metal sword, slashed through the robot's body with precision, dismembering it piece by piece. Realizing he was about to get his ass clapped, Norman jumped onto a small robot and tried to escape by flying into the sky. But Yū, refusing to let the ugly mofo get away, summoned her neon wings and together with Ayato, they gave chase. They soon caught up with Norman, and Ayato, using his sword, sliced through the robot he was using to levitate, causing Norman to plummet from the sky and crash to the ground. Suddenly, Ayato was overcome with excruciating pain in his head, causing him to scream. His powers were abruptly sealed, chaining him and knocking him unconscious. In the past, Ayato's sister Haruka had cast a spell to chain his immense powers, limiting their use because of the destructive potential they held. So when Ayato regained consciousness, he found himself resting on Yū's thighs, right under her massive chest, which made him extremely uncomfortable. He quickly stood up, but Yū, acting coy, pulled his head back into the same position. In an embarrassed tone, Ayato asked Yū if she would be his partner for the Phoenix competition. Yū, caught off guard, blushed and started acting shy, almost as if she had a few screws loose. Meanwhile, Norman, still desperately trying to escape, found himself cornered by Claudia. Without hesitation, she impaled the vile traitor with her metal sword, ending the menace once and for all. Before long, the Council of Schools convened with representatives from each academy in attendance. The meeting focused on the collaboration between Seidu Academy and Alakan Academy. Both institutions had agreed to jointly develop a new type of security robot. The next day, Ayato, running late for his training session with Yū, hurried to the training ground. On his way, he accidentally collided with a white-haired girl named Karen, sending her sprawling to the ground. As he checked to see if she was hurt, Ayato's attention was momentarily diverted by her noticeable features, but he quickly snapped back to reality when Karen's uncle called out to her. Shortly after, Ayato and Yū continued their practice for the upcoming Phoenix competition, which was just a month away. Despite their rigorous training, Yū was disheartened because she had never managed to defeat Ayato. She mentioned that since he had only 3 minutes to unleash his full power before the restrictions imposed by his sister's spell kicked in, they were confident of victory. However, she cautioned him against revealing his abilities in any duels until after the competition. Their practice session was interrupted by the arrival of Saya and Lester. Saya complained about Yū monopolizing Ayato, leading to another round of their usual bickering. Then Claudia entered the room with 2 representatives from Alakan Academy, Camilla and Ernesta, who had come to finalize the collaboration agreement. Ernesta, who had designed the robots that had previously attacked Ayato and Yū, flirted with Ayato, prompting Yū and Saya to fume with anger. As the group dispersed, Saya took Ayato's hand and declared that she had decided to participate in the Phoenix competition and wanted him as her partner. Yū immediately intervened, clinging to Ayato and declaring that he was her partner, and she wouldn't let him go. Later, while Ayato and Yabuki were heading to class, Ayato witnessed Karen's uncle, a man with a face fit for toilet and a ridiculous mustache, slapping Karen repeatedly. Distressed by the scene, Ayato stepped in, grabbing the uncle's hands and pleading with him to stop being a terrible guardian. The man, introducing himself as Koichiro, challenged Ayato to a duel with Karen if he wanted him to cease his abuse. With no other options, Ayato agreed, and the duel commenced. Despite his best efforts, Ayato lost due to the limitations of his power and had his badge shattered and sent tumbling to the ground. Euless, who had been observing the duel, quickly approached Ayato, scolding him for disobeying her instructions and engaging in a duel before the Phoenix competition. She expressed surprise that he had chosen to fight the top-ranked student in the academy, revealing to Ayato that Karen, the white-haired girl, was actually the best fighter in the school. Shortly after, Euless expressed her disappointment to Ayato for failing to defeat Karen, as she had hoped he would be the one to surpass her. She pointed out that Karen and Claudia were the top-ranked students in the academy, and if they wanted to make a significant impact in the Phoenix competition, they needed to rethink their strategy, especially now that his powers had been exposed due to the duel. Later that day, Ayato met Claudia at the poolside to replace his broken emblem. However, he immediately became distracted by thoughts of her figure, wishing he could dive into her oceans. Later on, as Ayato walked home, he encountered a crowd of students who were fans of Karen. On seeing Ayato, Karen approached him and thanked him for protecting her from her uncle's abuse. She expressed her gratitude, noting how his actions had made her very happy. They then walked home together, which made Karen visibly uncomfortable. During their walk, Karen confessed her admiration for Japanese swordsmanship, revealing that it was her only talent, and apart from wielding the sword, she felt like a useless doll. She asked Ayato if they could train together since she had been training alone since joining the academy. Ayato agreed and invited her to join his early morning training sessions. As Ayato said goodbye to Karen, he was suddenly tackled by Saya, the blue-haired girl with a flat chest. She asked him again to be her partner for the Phoenix competition, but Ayato declined, telling her he'd rather partner with a surfboard. Saya, disheartened, lamented her flatness and wondered why she had such bad luck. Meanwhile, at Alakan Academy, Camilla roused Ernesta from her deep sleep and informed her that the plan to attack Ayato and Karen was about to commence. Later that night, Ayato and Karen were jogging in the foggy night during their training session. They suddenly noticed something ominous in the mist and were immediately ambushed by draconic fiends. Ayato drew his metal sword and managed to slice off one of the fiend's hands, but soon realized that the creatures had regenerative abilities and were practically unkillable. Despite impaling several fiends, they kept regenerating. Karen quickly deduced that the regeneration was due to their cores. She then meticulously sliced the fiends into pieces until she completely destroyed their cores, causing the remaining fiends to retreat. Just as Ayato and Karen thought the danger had passed and began to relax, they were attacked again by the fiends, this time with scorching flames. Ayato then dodged the fiery onslaught, but the ground beneath them suddenly gave way, and he almost fell into a dark pit. Karen managed to catch him, but as she tried to pull him up, she was too weak, and both of them tumbled into the dark abyss, deeper than Darth Vader's cape. Karen clings to Ayato, pressing her melons on him because she couldn't swim, and while they talked, a huge monster suddenly appeared again. It immediately launched an attack, but Ayato activated his lukes and blocked it. The monster took a commercial break for a while to let them talk, and during this time, Karen told Ayato to separate from her as she was hindering him, as she didn't want to have someone else sacrificing themselves for an unworthy idiot like herself. Ayato told her to stop spewing trash and proceeded to give a motivational quote he heard on a TED Talk show. He told her to believe in him, and then he activated his lukes again, slashing a pillar nearby so she could stay on while he faced the dragon. The monster suddenly appeared and attacked again, so he immediately countered with a powerful slash to its neck, but it instantly regenerated. Ayato, observing the dragon, asked Karen where she thought its core might be located, and she told him she couldn't say as it seemed to be moving around inside its body. So Ayato resorted to one option of unleashing his prana. Even though no lukes had been able to withstand it before, he immediately activated it, reinforcing his weapon. Then he charged at the monster, which also rained fiery attacks at him, but he dodged them and finally landed an attack that split the goddamn monster in two, also destroying its core. Afterward, Bro suffered a spasm from overexerting himself, and they both sat down to talk while waiting for some help to locate them. Ayato asked her why she was fighting here, and she replied that she wanted to save her father, who was detained as a criminal after unaliving someone out of self-defense. She added that her uncle told her that there was only one way to save him, which was why she joined the Asterisk, and she had to obey all that her uncle said if she wanted to save her dad. However, Ayato told her she was on the path to hitting a brick wall since she was living her life based on what her uncle chose for her. She told she couldn't do it alone, but he patted her head and told her she was not alone. Following this, after they were rescued, Karen headed over to meet her uncle to tell him about Ayato, but he told her to stay away from that boy. However, she declined, telling him Ayato had taught her a very important lesson and she believed there was more to learn from him. The stupid uncle told her she must do whatever he told her, but she objected to this, causing him to slap her. However, she remained defiant, and when her uncle attempted to hit her again, she stopped him and told him she's done with all that. The next day, Karen faced off against Ayato in a friendly duel. The battle began with a series of intense exchanges, and after dodging and attacking moves by both, Karen got an opening and launched an attack. Mu got his sword deactivated in the process. However, he immediately switched to a spear and continued fighting. He soon changed to daggers, but Karen managed to hit them off, and just when she charged at him, thinking that she had won, Ayato suddenly grabbed her and knocked her to the ground with his grappling technique, winning the duel. Following this, Karen met Ayato to tell him she'd love to join his training sessions. But as he accepted her, Karen's uncle suddenly appeared to blame her for losing to such an ugly moron like Ayato. He attempted to hit her, but Ayato withstood him. He then threatened to expose all her father's deeds, but Claudia told him to shut the F up and threatened to deal with him too. He turned around to leave, feeling ashamed, and as he walked out, Karen thanked him for all he had done for her because without him, she would never have made it to the Asterisk, nor would she have been opportune to meet this set of wonderful people. The next day, Karen and Saya trained together as tag partners, but they performed so poorly on their first attempt, making Saya sad. Following this, while Ayato and the others sat to eat in a cafe, a student came to ask for his autograph, having suddenly become popular due to winning Karen, who was ranked #1 in a duel. However, as they started to talk, Euless showed him that the student who just got his autograph had already auctioned it online, shocking him as he realized that they were all looking for a way to make merchandise off him. Meanwhile, continuing their conversation, he told Saya and Karen that he was surprised when they said they would be teaming up to compete in the Phoenix. And Saya replied that she is determined to defeat the bitch who insulted her father's weapons, and to do that, she needed a tag partner to fight with her in the Phoenix. Euless then ridiculed them by saying they could only fail terribly with the hasty decision they made about teaming up. Saya replied that the last time she checked, she and Ayato also paired the same way. Euless immediately defended that at least she and Ayato had better teamwork than them. Ayato then calmly told them that they both had outstanding skills, but still needed to work on how to stay in sync. Realizing this, Sasayami stood up and excused herself and Karen from the next day's training, stating that they wanted to strengthen the bond between them. The next day, they both spent time together wandering around the city to get a birthday gift for Saya's father, but couldn't find a suitable gift that he would love. Saya eventually thought of getting a gun for him since he was a crazy scientist who loved working on weapons. They headed to a black market across the town filled with rogues and found a perfect gun which Saya thought would be beneficial to one of her father's experiments. Afterward, Saya asked Karen what she would also like to do since they have been about her own desire, and Karen embarrassingly revealed that she would love to learn how to swim. At the swimming pool, after teaching Karen some swimming lessons, Saya left to get them some drinks, and while she was away, Karen decided to practice some things she had learned, but as she swam she collided with one useless buffoon on headphones. The girl got angry and yelled at her as she apologized, but as soon as she realized that it was the infamous Karen on page 1 of the rankings, she became calm. She asked why she collided with her like that, and Karen revealed that she couldn't swim very well yet, shocking her so much that she began to mock her. Meanwhile, seeing this from afar, Saya threw a floater on her disgusting mouth before she could mock Karen further, making her very angry. The overconfident idiot asked Saya who the heck she was, and when she revealed her name, she mocked her saying she didn't even know that such a name existed. She then introduced herself as Violet and made some little yappings before challenging her to a duel. Saya accepted immediately, and just as the battle began, Saya summoned her overpowered cannon and blasted her away, winning the fight even before it started. Following this, Saya told Karen she needed to have more grit, but she replied that she was at fault for colliding into Violet. However, Saya told her it didn't warrant that level of scorn since she had apologized, making Karen reveal that it could be because she was already used to how her uncle talked down on her. Hearing this, Saya said she needed to fix that and have pride in herself, which made Karen tear up a little. Karen then decided to ask her why she chose her to be her tag partner, to which Saya replied that the biggest reason among other reasons was because she followed the same kind of swordsmanship as Ayato, surprising her. The next day, the two trained together again, and this time, their performance went through the roof, surprising Ulysse as she wondered how they were able to pull that off in just one day. A few days later, one ugly fatso who looked like he ate his parents visited Irene in her prison to give her the mission of destroying Ayato in the upcoming Phoenix Festa. She chuckled and wondered why he was targeting him, and the landwhale replied that Ayato's Orgalux was foreseen to pose a great threat in the future, so he wanted it out of the way as soon as possible. The next day, the opening ceremony of the Phoenix Festa took place, and an unknown dude with a crappy face welcomed everyone to the event before getting a short boring speech on the rules of the competition. Afterward, while Ayato and Ulysse waited for their match which was to take place soon, he saw Lester and quickly ran up to him to ask if he and his partner with Ashix would love to join them for lunch. However, Lester told him he had no intention in becoming his friend. The idiot called Lester turned to leave, but before he left, he told him that there was no other team he was willing to fight than his, so they better not lose to anyone before he got to them. It soon got to their turn to fight, and upon observing their opponent's combat strategy, Ulysse turned and walked away, leaving it to Ayato to handle. Then Ayato immediately activated his Lux and moved at the speed of light, breaking his opponent's badges in a single strike, thus winning the match. As they returned to their base, Ulysse expressed that they managed to avoid revealing their teamwork patterns, and it'd be great if they could keep it that way. She then told him that busybodies who call themselves reporters would like to poke their noses into his business, so he should dodge as many questions as possible. The next match came up, and it was between Alicant's new puppets named Artie and Rimsey and Moritz with his partner. As they prepared to battle, Moritz felt insulted that he was being faced with puppets, and Artie decided to ridicule him more by stating that he would give him a minute head start during which he would not lift a finger so Moritz could do whatever he wanted. The battle began and Moritz took on Artie by unleashing his signature move called Boreas Spera, but Artie deflected it easily without moving an inch using a powerful barrier. Seeing this, Moritz immediately tried to call his partner for a change in strategy, but he realized that he was not having it good with Rimsey either. So he decided to unleash a more powerful move with all his strength, like he was trying to eject a stubborn poop. However, this didn't affect Artie a bit, and Moritz became exhausted. Now that his 1 minute was up, Artie walked up to him and landed a brutal hit, instantly making him and Rimsey the winner. Everyone was shocked, and Ayato began to rethink his life's choices. While they watched the highlight of the match, Saya received a call from her dad who told her he made a special gun for her so she could use it in the tournament. He asked her to go retrieve from the customs, and she left with Karen immediately. Meanwhile, Ayato and Ulysse decided to go and lock in some training before the next match. However, they got so engrossed in it that they got late for the next match, so they quickly hurried back because they didn't want to miss the start of Saya and Karen fight. However, on their way they saw people gathered, and as they moved closer, they discovered it was Irene teaching some idiots some manners. She soon saw Ayato and immediately recognized that it was the same person Dirk asked her to destroy, so she approached them. She was about causing a ruckus when her sister, Priscilla, arrived to caution her, and at the same time apologized to Ayato and Ulysse for having such a numbskull as a sister. After they left, Ayato asked why she tried to provoke Irene earlier, and she replied that she seemed to have eyes on him, which was a bit fishy. Saya and Karen's match soon began just as they charged toward their opponents. Karen skillfully broke her opponent's badge within seconds. Meanwhile, Saya made a few exchanges with hers, and as soon as she got an opening, she phased him into nirvana with her laser blaster, making her and Karen the winner of the fight. Afterward, they both had a shower, and after getting out, Saya noticed Karen's well-carved melons and desired to touch them. But Karen stopped her because she liked men and not women. They suddenly receive a call from Ayato and Ulysse seeking access to come into their apartment, and while Karen tried telling them to wait a minute, Saya granted them access immediately, causing Ayato and Ulysse to be welcomed by 4 beautifully crafted melons, 2 small and 2 medium-sized ones. 5 days later, the second round of the tournament began with Ayato and Ulysse coming up first to fight against 2 midgets who seemed more confident than they looked. Ulysse told Ayato it was her turn to handle this, and Ayato immediately stepped back to watch her cook. As the fight began, Ulysse activated her Lux and unleashed a barrage of fire on the 2 girls. The first girl tried to escape from the attacks as much as she could, but she soon slipped and got caught up. Meanwhile, the second managed to escape the assault, and just when she thought she would shout "Bring it on" to show off, she realized that she was right where Ulysse wanted her, as an enormous fire suddenly engulfed her, sealing their defeat. After Ayato and Ulyss returned to their base, they decided to watch the next match, which was between Irene's team and Lester's team. The two idiots tried to run around as much as possible to evade the effect of Irene's weapon called Grady Scythe, an Orgalux known to manipulate gravity. However, as this Fatso thought it was time to attack and then lunged toward her, she suddenly activated her weapon, immediately knocking him to the ground. Lester quickly tried to take advantage of her distraction, but she overpowered him by manipulating gravity around him, making it difficult for him to move. Then she approached the Fatso and asked him to surrender, but Bro refused. However, she further pressed him to the ground until he passed out. Meanwhile, Lester managed to withstand the gravity pull around him, and he unleashed his ultimate attack on Irene, throwing her off. Seeing this, she approached Priscilla and asked to suck her blood, but it instantly healed up because she was regenerative, a jargon for humans with self-healing abilities. Irene's abilities suddenly became enhanced, and she unleashed a more powerful attack that overpowered Lester and made him useless till he accepted defeat. Ayato became speechless as he watched the fight because there was a high chance of also being clapped like that in the future. A few rounds after, Ayato qualified for the finals, and while Claudia congratulated him by giving him a feel of her heavenly pillows, he suddenly received a call from Kirin telling him Saya had gone missing. He immediately excused himself from the shorty begging for his magnum and headed out to meet Kirin. However, on his way, he met Priscilla, who was being chased by some hooligans, so he decided to rescue her to safety before asking what the problem was, and she replied that they were after her because her sister had caused a bit of trouble at the casino some days back. She immediately defended that he shouldn't see her sister like some bad bitch with low-quality wifey material, and then told him that Irene was on her way to save her. Irene suddenly appeared and tried to attack Ayato, thinking he was the one troubling her, but Priscilla told her he rescued her from the classless thugs. However, she didn't believe this, saying Ayato had no reason to rescue his enemies, but Priscilla insisted that she calm the heck down. Irene then asked why Ayato was there in the first place, and he revealed that he was on his way to help look for a missing friend, making Irene embarrassed. She told him she owed him one and then showed the fixtures for the next round, shocking Ayato. Afterward, Irene stormed Dirk's hideout to query him for allowing her sister to be in danger, even though he had promised to ensure her safety, according to their contract. Dirk replied that some things were beyond his control, and whereas Priscilla was regenerative, so who cared if she had a few scratches here and there. This statement made Irene mad, and she immediately launched an attack with her Grady Scythe, but Dirk activated a barrier that prevented him from being unalived, surprising her. Moreover, she expressed that she was now indebted to Ayato, who saved her sister, and this has used 1,000 points from her aura. After Irene left, Dirk asked his minion Corona to do a reading concerning the fight between Irene's team and Ayato's team. Corona got to this immediately and gladly revealed that Irene, his sister, would win. Hearing this, Dirk reasoned that he had to prepare for what was coming, and then that placed a call to the 7th Golden Eye. Following this, Ayato informed Ulyss that he was invited to a dinner with Irene, her sister, as they claimed they wanted to thank him more privately and intimately. Ulyss felt this was ridiculous and decided she was gonna go with him. At the dinner, Irene casually mentioned that she had been gambling because she needed a large sum of money. This piqued Ulyss' curiosity, prompting her to ask why Irene didn't just earn the money through the festa. At that moment, Priscilla excused herself from the table, and Irene took the opportunity to explain her situation. She revealed that she had borrowed money from Dirk years ago, and, as part of their agreement, she was forbidden from participating in the festa or repaying him with the prize money. Ulyss quickly realized that Irene had another motive for entering the festa, and asked her about it, to which she replied that Dirk had ordered her to destroy him, shocking them. Ulyss immediately inquired about why Dirk had targeted Ayato. Irene explained that Dirk saw Ayato's Luke's weapon as a threat and wanted to eliminate him before it became a problem. Irene further revealed that it must be due to the fact that he had seen someone wield the same type of Orgalux before, and hearing this, some memories flashed in Ayato's mind. He wondered why she was telling him this, and she revealed that she wanted to pay back his favor of saving her sister, and be free from that guilt when eventually fighting him. After the meal, Priscilla walked Ayato and Ulyss to the door. Before they left, she shared that she was happy to support her sister, as Irene was fighting for her sake. However, Priscilla also confessed that Irene became a different person whenever she wielded her Lukes, and that often made her scared. Later that night, Ayato decided to visit Claudia, concerned about the dangers of Irene's Orgalux. However, when he arrived, he found her sound asleep, and as he attempted to wake her, Claudia suddenly attacked him in her sleep, looking like she was possessed by Freddy. Ayato narrowly dodged all her strikes, managing to evade her blade until she finally snapped out of it. Once awake, Claudia quickly apologized, but Ayato told her not to worry about it, as he shouldn't have barged in while she was asleep anyway. Ayato became curious about what just happened and asked her what the heck was that, so Claudia offered to reveal the truth, but only if Ayato agreed to join her team for the upcoming Griffin Festa. Ayato accepted the condition, and Claudia confessed that the cost of using her Orgalux was a heavy one. She had to experience her own death repeatedly. In fact, she had relived her death over 1,200 times since first wielding the weapon, which left Ayato deeply concerned for her well-being, but, despite his worry, Claudia assured him that she could handle it. Ayato then shifted the conversation to Irene's Orgalux, and Claudia explained that Irene's weapon had the dangerous ability to manipulate the user's mind. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, Irene, looking deranged, stood under the moonlight, surrounded by the bodies of the thugs who had harassed Priscilla earlier that day. The following day, just before the match, Ayato suggested a new strategy to Ulyss, and she agreed to it, provided it would give them a better chance of winning. As the match began, Ayato dramatically unsealed his powers in a fashion typical of Power Rangers. Ulyss immediately launched fire discs at Irene to divert her attention, but Irene effortlessly deflected them and still managed to block Ayato's attack. After exchanging blows with Ayato for a while, Irene leaped back, only to spot Ulyss launching fireballs her way. In response, she countered with gravity spheres, neutralizing the attack. Impressed by their teamwork, Irene acknowledged how well-coordinated Ayato and Ulyss were. She then attempted to trap Ayato with her gravity manipulation technique, but Ulyss warned him just in time, allowing him to evade it. Meanwhile, Ulyss immediately attempted to target Priscilla, but Irene intervened, shielding her sister with a protective barrier before drinking red juice from her once more to regain strength. As Irene closed in on Ayato, Priscilla collapsed, leading Ayato to ask her if she wanted to continue feeding her deranged sister with her blood. Irene coldly told him to stay the fuck out of her affairs and then launched another attack, which Ayato blocked just before Ulyss rejoined the battle. A few moments later, upon realizing that Ayato was focused on breaking her weapon, Irene finally understood their plan, and in retaliation, she unleashed her gravity spheres at them, but Ayato swiftly cut through them all before driving her into a trap laid by Ulyss. Ulyss triggered the trap by causing an explosion around Irene. But as the smoke dissipated, they realized that Irene had shielded herself with her gravity spheres. Then suddenly, they discovered that her Orgalux had completely taken control of her mind, as she approached Priscilla to get some more blood, but this time she almost drained her 5 liters away. Ayato thought they had to do something quickly before she escaped her sister, but when they attempted to get closer, a powerful gravity blast pushed them back. Despite this, Ayato pressed forward and tried some motivational talking with Irene, urging her to regain control of her body before she allowed her greed for power lead to the death of something precious to her. His words seemed to reach her for a brief moment, but the Orgalux soon overpowered her again. In a decisive move, Ayato unleashed a powerful move with his Orgalux, using all his prana, and then charged at her, knocking the Grady scythe off her grip. He then focused all his energy into his Lux and completely destroyed the Grady scythe, restoring Irene back to her senses as she collapsed and went unconscious. Ayato and Ulyss were declared the winner. However, Ayato collapsed to the ground completely exhausted, and the spectators watching the match immediately realized in that moment that Ayato's abilities had a limiter. Not long after, Priscilla regained consciousness in hospital, still recovering from the ordeal when her sister, Irene, had nearly drained her life while under the control of her Orgalux. Irene, relieved to see her awake, apologized profusely for letting the weapon consume her. Priscilla, however, reassured her sister that she held no resentment, expressing a desire to become stronger so she could fight by her side rather than being protected all the time. Meanwhile, back in the arena's waiting room, Ayato woke up and told Ulyss not to worry about him, assuring her that he would recover before their next match. However, she was not convinced and told him to try to rely on her more, reminding him that they were a team. Just then, Claudia, Saya, and Karen entered the room like flies and started perching all around him. Saya pulled Ayato's face into her flat chest, vowing to nurse him back to health. Karen quickly grabbed him too, and stuffed her small nons in his face, almost suffocating him. However, Ulyss got uncomfortable and pulled him away, telling them to go prepare for their upcoming matches. However, Claudia playfully insisted on taking care of him since she didn't have a match to worry about. As Ayato finally managed to pull free before he passed on to Nirvana from too much plot, he tried to assure them all that he was perfectly fine. Meanwhile, outside the room, Yabuki chuckled to himself, wishing it was him who had this much access to plot, but unfortunately, he was a riskless idiot with the face of a troll.